We have witnessed how property investment has become a good hedge against inflation, but are all properties a good form of investment, and do all properties fetch higher returns? For that, we often hear our friends or our agents, giving their own opinions and comments. Some say that this property has a very good potential upside because it's located next to an MRT station. This property is in huge demand because it's next to a popular school. Everybody can have their own opinion, their own say. You can say and I can say, but who actually confirm? Now today we are going to show you a detailed data analysis, and I always believe in data and statistics because they tell a tale to how a property has performed over the years. And right now we are in our episode of Data Stories. Hello everyone, I'm Sean In, and welcome to one of my episodes for Sean In's Real Estate Data Stories and Analysis. And today we are going to zoom right into the topic of: does a strata titled property have a shelf life? When I talk about shelf life, I'm not referring to the number of remaining lease left in a property, be it a 60-year lease, 99 years, 999 years, or if not a freehold property. What I'm talking about in definition of a shelf life in the Oxford Dictionary, and it says it is the length of time for which an item remains usable, fit for consumption, or saleable. Now, when we have a deeper understanding of shelf life, it also means that the length of the time that it remains a form of attraction. Does it has an upside potential for our investors and Singaporean homeowners? Now, before I answer that question, we have a very detailed analysis report of how the prices has fared for your property since the day you took over the keys. If you wish to find out more about this report, please do not hesitate to contact me at my mobile number. I'll be more than happy to share with you the report analysis. First and foremost, we need to establish what type of property are you holding on to, whether it is a freehold property or a leasehold property. Now, for a freehold strata titled property, you begin to understand that you actually own that airspace, that particular airspace above the land for an infinite period of time, and you co-own the land together with the rest of your neighbors. Now, for a leasehold property, yes, you own that specific airspace over a fixed period of time, but you do not own that piece of land that the property is built on. Now, of course, for the leasehold, we understand that it can be a 60-year leasehold, 99-year leasehold, or a 999-year leasehold. And in general, 80% of our populations lives in HDB, which stands for Housing Development Board. These public housings, in general, they are all 99-year leasehold. And right now, we zoom into the HDB scene, and you can see the price index of the HDB resale flats from 1994 all the way to year 2021, third quarter. And for the price index, you have to understand that, for example, in first quarter 2009, the price index was 100, and within the next 1.5 years' time, it has risen up to 110. It means that the HDB resale price has gone up by 10%. Now, you take a look at the whole entirety of the graph, you begin to understand that there are the down periods, which is especially in year 1997. That is our Asian financial crisis. And during the 2007 and 2008, there was very little movement, but you can see the spike upward trend because that was the recovery period after our world financial crisis, which is also known as our Lehman Brothers collapse. And across from year 2009, you have begun to experience the whole property boom in terms of the HDB resale all the way up till the fourth quarter of 2013. Why is that so? That was actually the period where the HDB allows for valuation to be done by the various home sellers, and that is to be done before even the price is negotiated. And there was this period where the people are forking out cash over valuation for the resale properties, and that becomes an unstable situation where the price keeps on going up to the point where in its peak, in order to buy a Bishan resale flat, a buyer has actually forked out 250,000 cash over valuation. And that is really shocking. And because of that, HDB wanted to stabilize the market, and that's the 2040 game changer. That means they have stopped the pre-valuation before the sale of the property, and right now they have actually converted that to almost likened to a private property transaction where both the sellers and the buyers agree to a price. Then the buyers are allowed to do the valuation, and of course under the valuation, the HDB valuers will then begin to rely on the past record transactions of the past 1 year, and that actually goes according to the market forces. And after 2014, you begin to see that there is actually a slight gradual downward trend, and the whole market has stabilized throughout until year 2020. Now, this whole entire period, that's what I call as a healthy transactions between both the sellers and the buyers, and it becomes a competitive market as well, because nobody knows what's the valuation, and everybody has to rely back onto the past record transactions that's posted on the HDB website and to get a better picture. In the pandemic years, in year 2020, that's where we enter into the circuit breaker. And after the circuit breaker, you will see the upward spike because why? There's a construction delays in most of the build-to-order BTO flats, and most of the newlywed couples, or if not families, they are doing the transition. They are moving into the resale HDB flats readily, and that's when you see that huge demand during the period up till today. Now, when you look back at this HDB resale price index, does it mean that, if I own this HDB property from year 1994 all the way to year 2021, I see a potential upside? Yes, of course it is. But does it mean that it has no shelf life? Now, recall what we have defined what is that shelf life. You begin to understand that if I own the property, for example, in year 2000 and across to year 2007, within these 7 years, what has the property done for me as owner, because I do not see the upside potential on that. Now, in year 2015, when the market has stabilized all the way to year 2020, in this window period, has the money been invested into this HDB been working harder for me to bring a better returns, a better ROI? Well, that is a question for us to find out. And not forgetting that the older resale HDB flats, especially in mature estates, faces what we call a lease decay. That means it's a gradual reduction in terms of its value due to the restrictions imposed on the next batch of buyers because of the restrictions in their CPF usage, and even in terms of the approval of their bank loan and HDB loan quantum to finance the property. On 24th of March 2017, our National Development Minister, Mr. Lawrence Wong, has cautioned all homeowners in the HDB scene that we cannot assume that all old HDB flats will be automatically eligible for the Selective En Bloc Redevelopment Scheme, which is known as our SERS. Now, when he mentioned that, it actually caused a little bit of a ruckus in the property market trend, and that actually put a question, on our heads. Does our HDB flat depreciate over time? Now, in a statistics graph that is actually posted onto the Straits Times for our readership, we can understand that once a HDB remaining lease left about 60 years and under, that's when the time where you begin to see the downward trend in terms of the resale price. Because in our old policies, it has mentioned that with less than 35 years lease left, there's no bank loans that's actually applicable for the homeowners. Basically, they have to use their entire cash savings, or if not their CPF, which is still applicable for the down payment and for the mortgage servicing. Now, with 30-year lease left, the CPF cannot be used for down payment nor HDB loan servicing. But of course, HDB loan is still available, provided that if the remaining lease covers the buyer up to the age of at least 80 years old. Now, this is the old policy, and with less than 20 years left, there's no loans that's available for the homeowners. Basically, you're putting your entire savings into the property. Now, is that worthwhile to own an old HDB resale property? Because of the declining market trend of the older HDB resale prices, and the government and HDB still want to make public housing as a sustainable market, they decided to revise the policy on the 10th of May 2019. The previous focus was on the remaining lease of the property. Now they focus on the sufficiency of the lease itself, meaning to say that the property lease must cover the youngest buyer till the age of 95. For example, in this table, you begin to see that there's a remaining lease of the house versus the age of the youngest buyer. Now, for example, if you are aged 21 years old and you decided to co-own to buy the HDB resale flat, which has a remaining lease of 70 years. So we know that 70 plus 21 equals to 91. So it did not exceed the 95 years mark. So therefore, your CPF usage is reduced to 93%. Now, this is just an estimate based on the table graph. Of course, you have to refer back to the authority websites for more accurate calculations. But we begin to understand that yes, this is actually a movement to dissuade the young buyers from owning the older resale properties. Number two, you can now use a CPF to buy a property as long as there's at least 20 years on the remaining lease. Back in the olden rules, they have only allowed for 30 years minimum. But however, you can still use your CPF in this new policy as long as the 20 years left in the market. Number three, the old 60-year limit on the HDB housing loan is removed, meaning to say that if the flat lease can last you till your age 95 and at least 20 years left, you can still enjoy the full HDB housing loan. That means that you can borrow up to 85% of the flat's value and pay the remaining 15% with your CPF. Number four, your property lease needs to last till age 95 if you want to withdraw more than your basic retirement sum. Back in the old policy, when you're age 55, you can withdraw any CPF money above the basic retirement sum if you pledge a property with a lease of at least 30 years remaining. Number five, as I mentioned earlier, this is a very big pivot from focusing on the remaining lease to focusing on the sufficient lease. And in fact, this could help to push up the value of the older properties which started to see the values plunge sharply once there's 30 years or less on the lease. And now they have another 10 years of sellability. The other effect that it makes it harder for the younger buyers to purchase the older properties because the age of the youngest buyer is used to determine if the lease can last till age 95. Conversely, you can understand from the point of view, it makes it easier for older buyers to purchase older properties because they face fewer loan restrictions simply due to the low remaining lease. Now, before I share with you the graphs and the statistics of how HDB has performed since their launch price to their TOP stage and to their current age, I need to share with you about this particular year, which is in year 2014. And that's when the HDB changed the rules that the valuation can only be done by the purchasers after the price is agreed. As I've mentioned, that during that year, the HDB stopped publishing the cash over valuation prices as well and removed those that were previously posted online. So currently, what HDB has done, they only publish the selling prices of the resale transactions on a daily basis. And this means that the sellers cannot use the cash over valuations, in short stands for COV, as a basis to hike up the selling price. The seller and the buyer will instead focus on negotiating the total selling price based on the prices of the past resale transactions. And that makes the whole entire HDB property market sustainable. And right now we look into the price behavior for a HDB flat that started off together with the whole entire development of Sengkang HDB at said town. And this is located at Block 325A Sengkang East Way, which is in close walking distance to Sengkang MRT station and Compass 1 shopping mall. The 99 years started from year 2003 when it is first completed. And you can see that there's always an upward trend. And of course, we understand there's already transactions happening in year 2006, which is barely 3 years from its completion. Now we understand because at that point of time, before 30th August 2010, there were varying restrictions on the minimum occupation period before you can put your property on the resale market. And that depends on whether a CPF housing grant or housing loan is utilized. If you are using a HDB loan plus a CPF housing grant, there's a restriction that you have to stay in the property for 5 years. For those who did not take any housing grant, they can sell the HDB after 3 years. And if you are not using any housing loan or CPF housing grant, mainly you are paying purely by using your cash and CPF savings, the minimum occupation period will be reduced to 1 year. Therefore, you can start seeing the transactions happening in year 2006, and it spiked all the way towards year 2014. That was the pivoting point when the HDB changed the policies. And then you begin to see that the market stabilizes and the prices actually has gone down gradually and has stayed almost in equilibrium at around $400 PSF. And if you are translating in terms of the quantum, it is hovering about 400,000 for a 4-room flat and 500,000 plus for the 5-room flat. Now I'm going to plug out the data analysis from a HDB estate which is located far away from Sengkang MRT station, and that is at Block 158B Rivervale Crescent, which is directly opposite Rivervale Plaza. This is again the HDB estate that completed in year 2003. As you can see that prices has already been transacted in the resale market since 2006. And it has steadily increased all the way until to 2014 as well, when there's the peak of the HDB resale market. And thereafter, after the new policy has been introduced, the prices have actually gone down, and you can see that the 5 rooms and 4 rooms are actually hovering between $300 per square foot to $400 per square foot. This actually tells that people still prefer HDB estates that's closer to public transport such as the MRT, and that actually comes as a form of an attraction to the next group of buyers. And we understand that in terms of the price comparison, the price actually did drop more drastically as compared to the ones that's closer to MRT. So for this area that's far away from the MRT, but of course they still enjoy the nearby amenities. So the price quantum for a 4-room flat, it is hovering around $380,000 to $400,000. Whereas for the 5-room flat, which is underperforming, they are hovering around $400K plus to $500,000. Right now, I'm going to pull out the data from a HDB estate, which is in Block 275C Compassville Link, located next to Pongo MRT station. I particularly pick up this HDB estate because the 99 years started from its completion in 2009. And of course, in year 2013, 2014, that's when you see most of the transactions happening. You can see that the prices have actually gone up from the typical launch price of around $400,000. It has gone up all the way to about $650 per square foot. That translates into each 4-room flat fetching about $600,000 to $635,000. And that is actually a very good profit, for a newly 5-year MOP HDB resale flat. And of course, we know that in Pongo MRT station, besides the public transport along the northeast region line, you do have a lot of amenities such as supermarkets as well as coffee shops and clinics and other amenities and bakeries. In year 2014, you can see there's a downward trend because of the new change in the policy, and the per market has stabilized at around $550 per square foot, which means that the prices have dropped to almost like $550,000 to $580,000 for the 4-room flat. In the recent years of year 2020 and 2021, the prices has actually gone back up to around $600 per square foot, which works out to be around $600,000. And what I wanted to say that in this whole entire span from year 2014 to year 2021, which is a good 7-year long, has the money been invested in the HDB been working hard, or has it been just sitting there accumulating the CPF accrued interest? And that's when I actually found out that most of the time the people are being stuck because they have accumulated so much accrued interest in their CPF, and it became a negative sale for their HDB when they wanted to do an asset progression. Now, as we begin to understand that this Compassville Link HDB estate next to Pongo MRT station, they are the design and build BTOs, which also means that they are higher in demand, and because of the proximity to all the amenities and public transport, there's always a huge demand for that. and that actually drives up the whole entire price, which makes the 4-room flat cost more than the average BTO resale 4-room flats in Sengkang. Now let's take a look at this 617A Pongo Drive, which is just a HDB estate further away from Pongo MRT station but newer flats. Its 99 years started from year 2013. Take note that this is about 3 years after the new HDB policy, which was announced on 30th of August 2010. From this effective date, regardless of the type of loan taken by the owners or no loan was involved, the minimum occupancy period of 5 years will be imposed. Which also means to say that the resale transactions will only be recorded from year 2018 onwards. And there you can see that some of the prices have actually transacted as around $425 per square foot, which translates to about $430,000 in quantum. And the price actually steadily increased all the way for the 4-room flats to January year 2020, right before our Singapore circuit breaker. And it has gone up to $475 per square foot, which also translates to be about $475,000 for a 1,000 square feet 4-room flat. So because of the slowdown in terms of the transactions during the entire pandemic period, the market correction has gone down to be about $450,000. So I would say that in terms of the upside, usually it is around the MOP stage, or at least 2 or 3 years from the 5-year MOP period. That's when you begin to see the highest potential in terms of the HDB resale market. After which, you begin to understand that we also run into competitions when other HDB estates around it started to be available when they reach their individual 5-year MOP period. So that's the time when buyers have a lot more options to choose from, and the prices will always start to stabilize from then onwards. Now we're going to look at this HDB estate, which is one of the youngest cluster in the entire Sengkang town, and that is located at 216A Compassville Drive, directly opposite Sengkang MRT station. And the 99 years started from 2016, which is its completion year. And currently in year 2021, this is a time where you see the transactions in the resale market. And for the 4-room flat, they are actually hovering around $600 per square foot, which also translates to be about $580,000, which actually performs way better than the older 5-room flats in Sengkang town. You can see from the 5-room HDB resale transactions in this new estate, they have actually gone up all the way to the resale price range from around $650,000 to $760,000. That's when you begin to see that when it's a location near to the amenities, to a shopping mall, to a public transport such as MRT station, it can fetch a higher quantum. Well, we are definitely going to see how it's going to perform across the next 2 years, because I'm definitely believing that the prices, in my own humble opinion, is going to hold at this current $600 to $650 per square foot region. So as a summary, in terms of the HDB past 21 years growth from year 2000 all the way to 4th quarter of 2021, you can see that in year 2000, the average PSF was hovering around 245 per square foot, and it has risen gradually and attained its peak in the end of 4th quarter 2013 at $480 per square foot, and that translates to be about 95.83% growth. And after the 2014 new policy that has been introduced, the HDB market has entered into a correction, and at year 2020, the correction has gone down to 75% growth. We know in year 2021, the resale market has picked up. Looking back at this graph, you will see that the world events such as the SARS period in year 2003, world financial crisis in year 2008, as well as national events such as the change in HDB policy in year 2014, and the introduction of the slew of cooling measures subsequently along the years leading up to today. HDB homeowners in fact do enjoy a positive growth. But what I'm zooming into are the years of stagnancy, especially in the beginning of 2014 to the end of year 2020. What has the HDB property has done for you? That we have to understand. What could you have done with your property? Are you still sitting on your property with the CPF that's locked in and the CPF accrued interest accumulating? Or have you encashed out your property and reinvest the profits into other properties that could have fetched a higher returns and capital appreciation? I'm speaking especially to those of the working class age group, citizens and PRs. Take for example, if your HDB property has reached the 5-year MOP period in year 2014, would you choose to sell it and encash your profits and reinvest into other properties? Or would you still choose to keep it and wait for a period that you will appreciate, and knowing that this is a factor that you cannot control, but is according to the market forces? For our young couples who have bought the BTO flats as their first matrimonial home, I believe you would have considered earning your first pot of gold when your HDB property reaches its 5-year MOP period. But are you taking this opportunity to plan your asset progression and using your current HDB flat as a stepping stone to upgrade your lifestyle? Of course, it all boils down to different families with different needs and priorities, and it comes back to the main important factor, such as affordability. Are you able to afford the lifestyle that you wanted? Are you able to afford to buy and upgrade a bigger flat because you need a bigger home for your expanding family? There are other priorities such as living near to your parents or your family member that you need to take care of, or living within the vicinity of the school that your child or children are commuting to, or you simply just enjoy the convenience of the nearby amenities, facilities, and public transport such as MRT station. I believe that every family has a different need, has a different priority and requirements, and I'm here to provide customized solutions in your asset progression. Before we end, if you have any burning questions or thoughts after I shared this, please feel free to drop me a line at my mobile number, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And if you wish to obtain a detailed analysis report of the property that you have purchased or currently owning, and you want to find out how the price behavior have worked throughout the years, please feel free to contact me at my mobile number 94557422. I'm Sean In, and I look forward to see you in my next data story.